President Trump is now the 47th president of the United States. And today marks the formal beginning of Trump 2.0. But history may ultimately judge this whole decade and beyond to be the age of MAGA. Joe Biden now looks like a blip, a forgettable and fleeting waypoint in a whole era defined by Donald Trump. The two men couldn't be more different in style, but in substance, Biden's done little more than pave the road for a man his entire presidency was intended to stop. Biden warned America that Trump was a dictator in waiting who threatened democracy itself. We didn't really believe it. Why else would he ride along the new president and first lady en route to the ceremony at the Capitol this morning? He ended his single term with dire warnings about an oligarchy of the ultra-wealthy. But he didn't see that as so much of a problem when the Harris campaign was burning through its $1.5 billion. Nor did the Democrats complain when the US tech moguls, seated together at today's ceremony, right beside the incoming cabinet, were in lockstep with their agenda. But as for President Trump's comeback, the days of the dire warning are done. Biden leaves with the lowest approval rating of any president in history. Trump begins with his own record high. And all of the polls show that a majority of Americans are now optimistic that Trump will make them richer and make the world and America a safer place.
Hello, welcome to the review. Thanks for clicking on the link. I appreciate it. Today's video, we're watching Piers Morgan's first episode after Trump's inauguration, and I think it's a pretty damn good one. And let's just get on with it. Enjoy.
No one knows more about American presidents than you. What did you make of the speech?
But the headline would be this. So here you have President Biden sitting right to the side of President Trump. And Trump just trashes Biden's whole administration. It would be like you right now if I just trashed you, but you didn't have a mic. You couldn't say anything. And a two-shot, and there's you. And that wouldn't be hard for me to do, Morgan. You know that. I could do...
You'd relish
I could riff 20 minutes and just cut your throat. And then you'd be there like this. So...
And a lot of the media is up in arms about what Trump did there with his speech. But you know what? I don't blame him. They tried to put him in freaking jail. They tried to ruin his life. I don't blame him even a little bit for trashing him his whole speech. I'm actually glad he did it. They deserved it.
To me, that was an extraordinary moment in history. Because most presidents in their inaugural address, they don't go in for the kill. Trump is the exception. He went in and he laid it out. He said, didn't use the word disaster, but every paragraph was, these people screwed up, these people hosed you, these people are weak, these people are corrupt, and these people are 5 feet away. That was an extraordinary bit of American history.
Well, let's take a little look at a bit of that. I'm just going to play it for the audience.
For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. From this moment on, America's decline is over.
And the whole time, like you say, not just Biden, actually, you had Kamala Harris, you had Bill Clinton behind them, Hillary Clinton, you had the whole Democratic top tier. But it was his claim that he wants to have a revolution of common sense. I think that is one of the underrated elements to Trump's big win, is that many people came to the conclusion that the Democrats just almost denounced common sense, and Trump was the response to it. Let's take a listen to what he said about that.
Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense.
I think that's a great line. common sense. I mean, it's what you used to be all about, right? And still are. But it's like, and that's what I hope I try and be, a core of common sense, a revolution of common sense in a world that increasingly has felt like it's gone completely nuts.
Well, there is no doubt, and the facts back it up, that President Biden was held captive, kind of like Patty Hearst, by radical progressives in the White House. And common sense does not enter into their political point of view. They're in it to redefine American society. And people watching abroad need to know that. It's not about problem solving for the radical left. It's about changing everything from gender to immigration to Green New Deal, change everything. And Biden was a captive to that, did not fight it one bit. And the result is that Joe Biden will go down in history as the second worst president in America that we've ever had.
I don't think Biden could fight it. Biden didn't have a clue what was going on. He was not running things by any means at all. He was just a passenger along for the ride. I don't know who was running things, but it definitely was not Joe Biden.
I thought it was very profound when he talked about surviving the assassination attempt and how he feels that's now empowered him.
Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
Let's start with you, Billy, because I've never interviewed you on this show. I can't think of a more uncensored gentleman.
Ain't Billy Bush the guy that had that recording and the grab the P recording? Ain't that him? Let me know in the comments. I think that's the same guy that was recording when Trump said grab him by the P. Let me know.
Than Billy Bush. So
Well, I can't believe this. I can't believe we're finally getting together in the back of a van in a parking lot. This is very creepy. I'm just glad you're not in it.
It feels suitably glamorous for you, Billy. Billy, look, everybody knows what happened with you and Trump in that leaked tape and so on. As I knew you would.
Okay, it was him. I thought it was him. It's kind of funny.
You made a great comeback. You got a great new show. And you've had a lot of time to reflect on all of this. How do you feel watching Trump there, having done 4 years, very controversial, very polarizing? Then he lost 4 years in the wilderness, at least 2 of which we all assumed he was dead and buried politically. And now, after the most extraordinary year, where people try and jail him, they try and kill him, and so on, he emerges with this thumping victory, and he's back there today becoming president again. What do you feel about this?
Well, first of all, the throwing me out of the media establishment is part of the repudiation that people have with what's been going on in America. It's why Trump is back. The establishment throws me out because they're so desperate to get him, right? And then that's just the beginning of Trump derangement syndrome and the beginning of crazy. And then it gets crazier to where we are now. Trump sees this opportunity and he absolutely sticks his foot in it. I think people are relieved in a major way that Donald Trump stood up to what this giant wave of progressive liberalism that was killing us. People were becoming silent liars, Piers. They were afraid to say how they truly felt because, you know what? You could get fired. You could lose your entire livelihood. Like anything can happen. It got that crazy. And Trump is the first one to stop it. And I think he's the face of the end of wokeism. I feel very hopeful. I'm grateful that he did that. And now going forward, look, he's got some ideas that resonate with people. Trump is a little bit erratic. Can he lead this merry band of solo artists he has there, like Elon Musk and Bezos and all these guys and Vivek, and if Vivek is still around? but he's got all these incredibly oddball but really smart people in there. Can he lead them? I hope so.
Yeah. Joe Walsh, everyone is billing this as the kind of the beginning of the end of wokeism. You know, Elon Musk actually announced, you know, that the woke mind virus has now been cured and so on. It does
God, I hope so.
feel like, as you watch Trump railing there about everything from immigration to gender and so on and DEI, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris sitting there stony-faced, that this election, it does represent, it seems, like a sort of extraordinary repudiation of all of that stuff. Do you accept that?
No, Pierce, I think it's just a course correction. Look, the far left has issues and the Democratic Party has issues. You know where I stand on Trump. He's an utterly horrible human being, one of the worst. But the fact that he won tells us the real issues the Democrats have. Yeah, the far left has issues with speech, political correctness. But guess what? So does the far right. So does the MAGA right. So does Trump, who wants to sue people in newspapers who say mean things about him, or sue pollsters that deliver polls that he doesn't like. Look, the reason Trump won is simple. The American people are pissed off, with good reason, about a lot of things. Trump's a demagogue, and he lies to these people every single day. But the Democrats have ignored these folks who are pissed off. So America went with the bad guy who they thought was at least listening to them.
You know, it's funny you say that on a day when Joe Biden, once again, has done something that he vowed to the American people he would never do. He's just issued all these preemptive pardons for Dr. Fauci, to many others, and at the last second, he suddenly did the whole family. They all got preemptive pardons too, his siblings and their spouses and so on. This is exactly the kind of thing, Joe, which unfortunately for the Democrats, it's all going to be used as an ongoing stick to beat the Democrats with. Biden, in the end, betrayed you, didn't he?
Well, you know what, Pierce, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I would have agreed with you. And I would have opposed this notion of these preemptive pardons.
But now I have no soul and I have TDS really bad, so I think they're fine. Shut the hell up. I'm skipping this D-bag.
At the departments that investigate him. That's a bunch of hooey.
All right, let me bring in Elizabeth. You've been pulling some great faces, I have to say, throughout Joe's statements there, which would suggest to me you don't entirely agree with them. Let's start with his claim that Trump's a very bad person, one of the worst people in the world. I've got to say, I've known Donald Trump a long time, and I'm not claiming for a moment he's Mother Teresa reincarnated. But I do think that there's a lot of good about Donald Trump. He's a very loyal guy, as many people will attest. He can be very funny. He can be very human. He's a very good father, from everything that I've ever witnessed, to his kids, a very good grandfather, and so on. There's a long list of things which, if you were being dispassionate about it and fair-minded, you would say, actually, Trump can be a pretty good guy. There's another side to him, which we all know, which can be more complicated. He trash talks people in a way that people don't like. He does stuff which winds people up, and so on and so on. And he has some policies which are awful, as all presidents do. How do you best describe him, Elizabeth, to people who don't really get him? You spend a lot of time around him. How do you see him?
There's a lot to unpack there. Number one, my apologies for the faces. My husband always says I don't have a poker face, and I guess that is coming out right now. Look, to start, I have spent quite a bit of time with Donald Trump. I think the best way to describe him is authentic, right? He is a real human being, and with that comes jokes you may not like. You may witness a few actions you don't like, but he's also real. He's honest. He tells the American people how he feels. He says it like it is. And despite what anyone thinks about him, the American people obviously disagree, right? Because he just became the president of the United States. So you can call him every name in the book, but millions of Americans obviously disagree and just decided he should be president of the United States. So I think that's where we can leave that. I think when it comes to claiming that Donald Trump is going to go after his political opponents, it's laughable considering what we just witnessed for the last few years, considering what I have seen on the sidelines happen to President Trump himself, happen to his family, who I know very well, happen to his staff, happen to people like me. I haven't talked about it. I've kept quiet waiting for today, right? Waiting for Donald Trump to get sworn in. But they went after me too. They went after my family too. This DOJ wanted to crush any opposition that they had because they were so terrified of Donald Trump being as popular as they knew that he was, and the moment that we all witnessed today, Donald Trump becoming president. Again, the fact is he stood there, said he would not go after his political opponents, was sworn in today in front of a crowd of people, many of which not only hoped that he would spend the remainder of his life in prison, but worked to make that happen. And he said he was not going to do the same thing to anyone else. You can lie about it all you want. That is not what he said. And I cannot wait for him to prove everybody wrong and be the president the American people deserve for the next 4 years.
He couldn't have been clearer. And honestly, Joe, the irony of saying that this was all something that Trump's bears when he's literally been the victim of this for the last year in the most unprecedented manner. When you take a president of the United States, I'm going to say this.
What's Walsh shaking his head about? What, that didn't happen over the last year? They didn't go after him every which way they could? Watch him shaking his head.
This was all something that Trump's bears when he's literally been the victim of this for the last year in the most unprecedented manner. When you take a president of the United States, I'm going to say this one more time, through a criminal court for the first time ever that it's ever happened. And the reason you do it is because he may or may not have had a one-night stand with a porn star nearly 20 years ago and shuffled a bit of paper about it. It's a humiliating day for not just him and his family, but for America, for the American justice system, for the American presidential system. It was an absolute joke to drag Trump through a criminal court for such a pathetic and petty case like that. And if that had happened to a Democrat, by the way, you'd have all led the charge of how outrageous it was. Let me bring in Anna Kasparian on this. I mean, Anna, the sense I got watching Trump today is the sense I've got from speaking to him quite a lot in the last few months. I've had 5 or 6 conversations with him since he got shot. And I've definitely detected a man who is unbelievably grateful to be alive, that he genuinely understands that he came within half an inch of death, and very nearly it happened again a few weeks later in the golf course, which was another appalling failure by the Secret Service. So he feels that very strongly, and I think that would affect any human being, anyone. But secondly, he feels the hand of history. He hasn't got a campaign anymore. All he's got left now is to deliver on his big promises, and if he does that, to leave a legacy as potentially one of the great American presidents.
But in regard to his speech, I think that what Trump does really well is he actually listens to the concerns of the American people. Polling for years indicated that the majority of Americans were concerned about inflation, concerned about undocumented immigration. And while the Democrats tend to think that this strategy of denying and pretending it doesn't happen or isn't happening is somehow a successful strategy, it clearly is not. He pays attention to what people are concerned about, and he speaks to those issues. And I really hope that this is a teachable moment for the Democratic Party. So far, I've seen them refuse to take any personal.
It won't be. They're still saying all the same shit. They're gonna continue on the same road they've been on, pushing the woke crap, the DEI, the trans agenda. They're gonna keep pushing all the same crap. They haven't learned. You can see it already. They're already going deranged with Trump, and they're not going to stop it. I mean, they're calling Elon Musk Hitler now. They're not going to stop, which is fine with me because it's going to cost them the 2026 elections too.
Responsibility for their failures and foibles.
I don't think they've learned, honestly.
Cycle.
Yeah, honestly, and I don't see any evidence so far that Democrats have learned a damn thing.
Yep, Piers got it right there. Thanks for watching, y'all. See you next time. Cheers.